Hello and welcome to my first vlog about skills versus capacities in the weight room. During these 10 minutes I shall be analyzing the performance of 4 athletes in the back squat and the clean, looking at their skills, capacities or lack of them. The first athlete has a few skill issues. She's a 16-year-old hammer thrower and this is her second year of doing weightlifting. Nevertheless, she's having some trouble with her tempo in movement, a slight knee valgus on the left knee and tucking of the pelvis in at the end of the descent phase as well. The athlete was given the cue to try to control the movement, to get down slowly and try to move at a ratio of 2:1 descent and ascent. She was told to perform the lift while slowly counting 1, 2 on the way down and 3 on the way up. She was also reminded to keep going down at a depth where she can keep the normal curve of a lumbar spine, which in her case corresponds to a dip squat with the thighs below parallel. That would be enough for her as a hammer thrower. Squeezing the glutes muscles just prior to ascending as well will help her to keep the knees over the toes. By contracting the glutes, the femur will go into external rotation. In the last video clip, she was seen doing the squat at the correct technique after following the cues. The second athlete is a former netball player with no experience on weightlifting. Her case is quite complex with a lot of skill, but with some capacity issues as well, which we're going to focus here in this video. Her capacity issues mainly were limited range of movement in the ankle and hip joints, which was compensated by her by a trunk flexion during the squatting. She had great difficulties in maintaining the center of mass over the base of support due to her anthropometrics, long limbs mainly, resulting in her lifting the heels off the ground quite often. Valgus of the knee, both in descent and ascent phases, resulted later to be a skill issue rather than capacity, when she was given the cue to keep the knee trailing over the toes. Hip asymmetry was observed during the descent phase, showing muscle imbalance in her gluteal complex and lack of hip mobility as well, which, as she admitted, was probably due to her poor sitting habits over the years, and can also be maybe a medical problem, which she admitted she doesn't know, but she had a history of it. A solution for her, in her case, could be hip and ankle mobility. Here we can see her struggling to keep the heel down even 10 centimeters away from the wall. So she should stretch the hips and ankles quite often, and at the same time she should also strengthen the core and back muscles regularly as well. She could benefit from a pair of weightlifting shoes or try to raise the heels off the ground when squatting. Squeezing the glutes at the ascending phase can help her keep the knees in an external rotation, keeping the knees trailing over the toes, and strengthening the glutes as well, especially the left side, in order to correct the muscle imbalance she has. Keeping a good posture as well when sitting for quite a long time would be beneficial in her case as well. The third athlete is a former water polo player. He was a national team player as well, He used to train for, he's got quite a good strength training background, but never used Olympic weightlifting. So in his case, it's quite unfamiliarity with the skill. So we can see him performing quite poorly the clean. He's got incorrect timing of the movement, and his arms are dominating the movement throughout. He's seen here catching the bar with his legs straight. A slight kyphotic position as well in the lumbar spine is observed. It could be probably due to his long time swimming career, when he is constantly coached to keep the hips tucked for a better streamline in the water. Solution for this athlete could be teaching the clean as a whole part whole, maybe starting from the second pull and trying to lift primarily with the shoulders and keeping the elbows up when pulling. We'll try to remind the athlete as well to keep the back muscles very tight throughout the lift. So after employing these cues to the athlete, he's seen performing the clean much better from one session to the other as well. The athlete is very concerned now of the keeping the back muscles tight, as he's seen here watching himself in the mirror to try to keep in a good position before starting to clean. And this side-by-side video of the athlete before and after is clearly observed that the skill of this athlete has improved quite a lot from the beginning. The next athlete, the athlete number 4 for this analysis, is a 21-year-old discus thrower who has around 5 years of strength training using Olympic and power lifts as well. He's got some skill, but the capacity issues of this athlete are mostly observed in a limited range of motion in the right wrist due to, as he said, an old injury, which he has been compensating by holding the bar with his elbows underneath the bar during the catch phase instead of resting it over the anterior deltoids. He's seen with having lack of mobility in the wrist in his right hand. The compensation employed by this athlete is quite dangerous, as he goes into a greater lumbar lordosis when he shifts himself underneath the bar in order to keep the bar up. Relative stiffness of the shoulders, tight glutes, hamstring, hips flexors as well are seen in this athlete. Full shoulder flexion was observed to be achieved only at the lumbar thoracic spine extension. Solution for this athlete would be for sure a lot of flexibility training, especially in the shoulders and wrist, but also in the hip. Use of a safe compensatory technique when catching the bar, such as letting the bar roll over his fingers as well instead of holding it, and shifting under the bar could be better for him. Again, after giving him proper cues when lifting, such as trying to catch the bar earlier, going down a bit more, he's seen to improve his skill, but the capacity issue of the wrist is still seen there. As a conclusion, I would say that minimizing the restrictor's effect in the capacities of an athlete would for sure lead to skill improvements.